So good morning, everyone.
Good morning, sir.
So one more Sunday, we'll give it again to audit Sunday morning, right? So we'll start with chapter 4. We'll have a break in between with standards on audit so that there's some monotonous mitigation, right? And we'll be also covering other chapters in between. So chapter 4, automated environment, is more or less I can say it's related to chapter 3 which we have done. Chapter 3 which we have done is kind of risk assessment, internal controls. Similarly, here also, you just have to note that the risk assessment part will be there and the internal controls specifically will be there, but more or less in a automated environment. So back when the books of accounts were maintained in sort of, you can say, handbooks or registers, from there till now, from SAP, or now what we have implemented is ERP SAP environment. So in a sense we have to assess ourselves that whether we'll be able to audit in an automated environment. Everything is technology driven, even not just accounting software but even other softwares of the entity. Like I can say example of, I have already given one example, I believe, is of LTSL, Larsen and Tubro, Sargent and Lundy. There was a joint venture which I told you, which I was doing the audit, and there was a software for designing, and this designing software was costing 2 crore for L&T for 6 months period. So there could be other software as well, big softwares, designing softwares, which may be required by the entity. And overall, in all this environment, how as an auditor are we able to perform our audit in an automated environment, right? So that is why, looks like my screen is, yeah. So I was saying that we have to perform audit in an automated environment. So accordingly, we will consider everything, that is from risk assessment to internal controls, everything we'll consider, but in an automated environment, that means in a technology driven environment, right? So first of all, what do you mean by automated environment? Automated environment is nothing but a combination of people, process and technology. People, process and technology. So already the environment is consisting of what? People, process, right? The people and the process were already there, always people and processes were already there, always. However, once we combine technology, that means PPT ka combo. If I say combo of PPT, so combination of people, process and technology within overall business environment is nothing but what? Automated environment. So there are so many types of application which is being used in the any entity, right? So we will be dealing here now accounting application specifically. We more or less I can say what, accounting software. So these are further divided in three categories. Category of business application, you can see, is packaged software, also called off the shelf applications used by micro and small business. What do you mean by off the shelf? Why do you think packaged software are also called off the shelf? It's a common term, terminology used in common parlance. Off the shelf applications used by micro and small business. Packaged softwares.
Not in our software. It means it has been purchased from outside.
It is purchased from outside, so that is packaged software. But I am asking off the shelf. What do you mean by this? Off the shelf?
So it includes more than one software, combination of software, like
So for you are asking, so you are saying for packaged software,
yeah.
meaning of package. Packaged means what? It's already made for you, available, ready made. It's already packed. You could say packaged versus tailor made, two opposite. You can you can use a tailor made software using your own customization, based on your own customization and needs. So that would be a tailor made software. And packaged software is something which is ready made, available for everyone whoever purchases the same packaged. And it is called off the shelf because you can directly you can directly do what? Purchase from the shop. And shop, there must, you must be seeing the shelves, right? So shelf, there must be some items kept in the shelves, so you can directly have and use them, right? So purchase directly from the shelf, off the shelf. That is why packaged or ready-made software, you can say, are small, or you can say, like antiviruses, like Gen GST, right? Similarly, Tele also you can directly go and purchase from the Tele shop, or you can directly purchase from online. Online, you can visit Tele or call them. So, off the shelf package software used by micro and small businesses, generally from small businesses. Similarly, small ERPs used in small to medium businesses. There are certain small softwares which are used in small to medium businesses, and ERP application used in medium to large companies. Now, just beside this, they have given you certain examples. I don't want to go through them now. I will just tell you how the question came in my exam, and I actually made a mistake. So the question that was asked to me in my exam, MCQ, November 2020 exam, MCQ, one exam MCQ was there, which said that SAP Business One, which category will it fall? SAP Business One. What do you think? What do you think?
Say sorry, come again.
Out of these three categories, one, two, and third category, which category do you think SAP Business One is a software, is a SAP, is a accounting software? Where do you think will it fall? In which category?
So three.
Three.
Second one, sir.
Why second one?
Yes, sir. Medium to large.
Medium to large
Cause
or small to medium? Huh?
Third one, sir.
Yeah, Sagar.
सर सेकंड वन लिखा हुआ है SAP बिजनेस वन.
तो लिखा हुआ, that is what I was saying ना, do not see. So it falls within second range. What will fall in third range will be SAP ECC. This is more or less, it is an ERM software, and this is more of an accounting software. Like you can say Tele 7.2. It's available for free. Tele 9. So these are falling in the small micro to small. But however, Tele ERP 9.0, Tele ERP, if you see, which includes also the accounting for GST and also other modules. And now they have implemented all everything in Tele ERP with respect to what? No deletion of entry, rather your logging will be made, auto logging. So daily logging will be created. Whatever you entry, whatever you do, the login will be there. So you can trail the audit trail will be happening now. So Tele ERP will be where? Small to medium. However, normal tele is where? Micro to small. So that is how they ask the question in my exam, and I also made the same mistake which you all did. If we don't know what is there in which category, then definitely we can commit a mistake, right? Like all of us did. So just remember two important points: is Tele is there in first category, but Tele ERP is second. Similarly, SAP Business One is in second, but SAP ECC is in third category. And this, there could be some other categories of accounting software like QuickBooks, Khata, Khata books or Khata. You must have seen these ads, right? So these are all what? Small accounting software used by micro to small businesses. So they can also ask you directly that accounting application give examples of categories along with examples, give category wise classification along with examples, or they can ask you the MCQ like the way they did in November 2020. Whatever be it, we need to do each and everything. The foremost part in this chapter is do not leave even a word. Each and every point is important in this chapter, because almost everything has been asked till now. All the things has been asked except for 2 3 questions which I'll highlight you. And for that matter, I'll just remind you that this is a very small chapter, but a sort of, you can say, chota bam bada dhamaka, like that, right? So small chapter but having a huge weightage. They, at least 4 to 5 marks definitely they will ask for one question, and 2 MCQ as well they can ask. So 6 7 marks weightage it carries, and it's a very small chapter and very easy to learn, like the way if we do how I am trying to learn it or make it learn to you. So just follow, remind, revise again and again, and you will be through this chapter like everyone else. Unlike everyone else, where many faces lot of doubts and a lot of difficulties in this chapter learning the same and understanding the same. So anywhere you don't understand, sir, why this point is in this question or in this topic, in this heading, why this point is mentioned, what is the logic, why it is so, and if you are not able to learn as well, then also please do highlight as it is. Okay, we have to do this completely comprehensively. We will not leave anything in this chapter because we don't know what institute will be asking. Now comes the layers of automated environment. Layers. So just like your CA, I can say, is made up of so many layers, right? First you have to do foundation, then IPCC, then trainings, articleship, final, and other trainings and other formalities. So similarly, the automated environment is also made up of various layers, by combining which we only come to interact with automated environment. So if you combine everything, then only you'll be able to use the technology driven environment or automation software. So that is what they are saying, that applications described above is just the one layer. It forms only one layer of the automated environment. Applications we just described above. However, there are other layers also. What do you think would be the other layers? It could be what? Hardware storage devices. My operating system, once I have operating system, then only I can install applications, right? If I don't have Windows, Linux, then how can I use the applications? So MS Word, everything are the applications, but I need to also have the operating system, and before that I need to have the hardwares, right? My hardwares. Similarly, I need to have the connection, LAN, WAN, VPN. All these are what? My layers of automated environment. So we can just see, first of all, hardware and storage devices, server, disk, tapes, network storage. Then you come with what? Operating system. We'll then install what? Our Windows, Linux, Unix, whatever your operating system. And there are other application software like database software. Particularly, you must have learned this in your advanced entity classes. Particularly what? MS Access, right? MS Access, and these are all what? Oracle 19c, MS SQL Server are what? Database software, database applications. Then network devices, like I told you, switches, routers, firewalls, these are all what? Network devices. So you can see here, like there are so many network devices, right? So that is what, here in the back, just beside me, just behind me, it's a router is right, router is implemented. Similarly, switches are there, firewall. So those so many network devices are also an integral part of any automated environment. Now here what? Networks also, LAN, WAN, VPN, the connection, that was I was talking about, the Wi-Fi, broadband, LAN, WAN, VPN, anything. And then your physical and environmental landscape, which relates what? IT facilities like data center, physical access controls mechanism like biometrics. You have you seen this um Krish movie? So biometrics, they scan here their heart, his heart, and also his eye retina. So that is an advanced biometrics which we might see in 2050s. So biometric based access system, CCTVs, adequate HVAC system. What do you mean by HVAC? HVAC system. Hmm? Anyone? It's like in your office, it could be like centralized AC, right? So similarly, centralized AC is operated from one environment. Similarly, there could be other communication ways by which, suppose you can say, is your telephone. So telephone is connected through only one line. However, someone can just ping in 9, and ninth desk will be automatically called up, right? So someone having from desk 1 need to call to desk 9 can just dial 9 or 98 or 12. So that is all what? An HVAC system which has been implemented in the entity on the organization. So that is an overall physical and environmental landscape only. So again we will go through all the points. First we need what? Hardware. And inside the hardware we'll install what? Operating system or Windows. Then after installing Windows, we already had installed what? Application software like Tally, ERP, SAP, Business One, and all everything. Apart from that, we'll also install what? Database softwares like MS SQL, Oracle 19c, right? These are all database software we'll install. After that, we'll now need to connect to you all. So for me to connect with you all, I need what? Network. So LAN, WAN, VPN, I'll need network devices like switches, routers, everything I'll need. And lastly, physical and environmental landscape, that is CCTV or biometric devices, HVAC system, fire suppression system, everything. Then you can say what? My entire automated environment is set up. And these are all what forms the layers of my automated environment. Layers of automated environment. Clear? Yes or no?
Sir, the first line, what it's mean? So above the one layer, that one.
ये
Describe
जो
the.
एप्लीकेशंस है ना ऊपर में, ये तीन एप्लीकेशन, ये भी एक लेयर है. जैसे ये एक लेयर है हार्डवेयर, ये ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम इज वन लेयर, डेटाबेस इज वन लेयर. नाउ डेटाबेस एप्लीकेशन, दिस इज आल्सो एन एप्लीकेशन सॉफ्टवेयर. Similarly, application software like accounting application softwares are also one layer of automated environment. It's just one layer. Other layers are these all. They are saying that application described above form one layer of the overall automated environment. The other layers are made up of technology, infrastructure, and physical and environmental aspects, which are given below.
Okay, okay. Then it means the software is also one of the layer.
Yeah. That is what I'm saying. After this, I told you now, after implementing hardware and installing operating system, we'll already had what application softwares, accounting softwares. We'll install then database, your MS SQL and Oracle 19c. So kind of that flow only I created. We already had this application software. That means what application software is also here are one layer of automated environment. So what do you mean by real-time environment? Next, real-time environment. Yes, you must have gone through this in IPCC.
Done simultaneously.
Are end-to-end.
There is a entry, the entry process and your storage of the data will be done simultaneously.
Right. So everything has to be done very quickly, right? Without in a span of time, or simultaneously you can say everything is done, including input, processing, and the output, final everything, storage, including storage. Everything is done simultaneously, like the way you can see in online softwares of like online business applications of Flipkart, Amazon, or IRCTC, right? Even they have what real time environment. They'll have to book the ticket again, process the entry, everything, and store, and again issue the ticket as well. And everything is done simultaneously without any delay. That is what is my real time environment, right? What that is what is my real time environment. Now quickly tell me, Sony, tell me, what do you think is man 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 like us are hard or soft? मर्द हार्ड है या सॉफ्ट है? फटाफट से बताओ.
Sir, hard?
You are saying man is hard. That means they don't have a soft corner.
No.
अरे, so man is hard in real environment, but in other environment they can also be soft. But real time environment, if you can see that he need to quickly decide, and therefore we'll see that what man is really hard in real time environment. You will see that man is not soft but man is hard. That means what real time environment, there are few components. One is from man, middleware, applications, networks, and from hard is hardware. So middleware, applications, network, and hardware is are four components of real time environment, IT components. And this is an MTP question. Four components, this is an MTP question, not yet asked in exam. To remind you, this has not yet been asked in exam, so mark this as important. They can ask you to quickly tell first of all what is real-time environment. Even if they don't tell, you will have to define first of all what do you mean by real-time environment. They can simply directly ask you what do you assess by critical IT components of real-time environment. Real-time environment के critical IT components. So here they can ask you directly 4 mark question, or they can ask you reverse, vice versa. That means they can give you one examples out of any of this, and they can ask you from the MCQ like what do you think is this category belonging to which IT component of real-time environment, belonging to which IT component of real-time environment. So we'll also see in depth what do you, what middleware consists of. So middleware is nothing but the in between input and output, right? So the middlewares are the servers like Apache, Oracle, Fusion, IIS. These are all servers, web servers. Now applications, just now what we saw, what ERP applications, accounting application, SAP, Oracle, e-business suite, core banking applications, which is generally used in banks. Then networks we see what WAN, LAN, and hardware we see what servers, data center, storage devices. So everyone got this, that real-time environment has several critical IT components, and we have what, four critical IT components in real-time environment, which is what man hard hai in our real-time environment. It's not an Instagram environment where you'll see real that man also has a soft corner, but this is what real life environment or real-time environment is. M say middleware, A for application, N for network, and hardware. Hardware. So quickly tell me, Krupali, where do you think web servers or not, sorry, servers, where do you think servers will lie, in which critical IT component?
Servers, hardwares,
Servers will fall in hardwares, and web servers,
web servers, same hardware, storage device. Sorry, web servers, search engine, sir.
search engine. There is no search engine in our man hard, or we have only four critical IT components. Man hard hai, from there which four,
Middleware, sir.
middleware, right? So just differentiate that web server will fall in middleware and servers will fall in hardware. So you can imagine the servers, if you have like any time gone through, just search Google server. So you'll see a huge room which is like built up of so many big servers. They this Google, or I don't remember which one company, has this server established in very remote location in a forest area where they have tight security, and they also had a video. This has been issued. Anyways, servers you can say is what, I can give you one more example, like big servers we in L&T used to have in Mumbai, which was placed in the first floor, or sorry, in the ground floor, and uh, in that heavy rain which occurred, I don't remember exactly, but I think it's for 2008 or 2010. In that time, during that time, their servers was waterlogged, and because of that the servers failed, and for 21 straight days they could not work because of the waterlogging in the servers. So now what they have done is, they have, first of all, this is an important IT control as well. What we'll see is what ITGC is in this chapter. ITGC is what, information technology general control, ITGC. This is an important ITGC, or you can say general IT control. What they have done now is, now first of all they have put two servers with same storage, with everything same, in two different locations. So they have not put the same server in Mumbai. So they have put the server in Mumbai, but the same copy they have also put in Chennai. So if at all anything occurs in Mumbai or anything occurs in Chennai, they will have access to any other any other server. First of all, this control was implemented. Secondly, one more control that they have implemented is that now instead of keeping it in ground, they have kept it in first floor. And in the first floor, you won't be seeing, like, the first floor of L&T is like, you can imagine is sixth or seventh floor of any building. So because first four floors are parking, and then floors are for walking and canteen or all, and then first floor starts. So you can say they have kept this in first floor. Now you can imagine is fifth or sixth floor. So that is, I believe, are the two important controls that they have implemented so as to prevent or detect or prevent any of the shortfall like what happened earlier in 2008 heavy rains. So servers are the big, you can say, are the physical devices, but web servers are like the middleware, where you can say is like storage or cloud storage devices. But again, these will require the servers, physical servers, but there are also web servers which you can store in web only. So those are like Apache, Oracle, Fusion, IIS. These are all what my middleware. So just differentiate between web servers and servers. We are digging in very much detail. I don't know if they will ask like this, but let's do it comprehensively so that we face each and every question with ease. Commit whatever they can ask, we are able to solve. That is what our intention in this chapter is going to be. Everything. So real-time environment, IT, critical IT components, four IT components, man, hardware, M say middleware, A for applications, N for network, and hardware. Clear? Now we'll see what most critical, most real-time environments are subjected to very huge risk, IT risk. Like hacking or any sort of other risk. They can hack, and therefore if they hack any, suppose they hack IRCTC, so entire IRCTC will be down. You can just imagine the kind of queue that will come in, right? Queue or whatever you can say, the crowd, because of these failures. So public domain and internet is the critical IT component of any real-time environment, and hence they are more likely to be vulnerable to network or cyber attacks, including denial of service or distribution of the denial of service. Hence it is very important for us to protect or operate in a real-time environment, to constantly monitor all these components to identify and resolve issues and failure issues of corporate governance. So very important for you to implement any sort of antivirus or any sort of protection that is required, or even the corporate governance is to be has to be very robust. Corporate governance, that means ethical requirements, everything has to be considered properly. Till now, any doubt? We are through with the first page. We have completed first page of this chapter. Anything can go through just in a minute and let me know. Yes, any doubt? Fast. So shall we move forward? So now come to understanding and documenting automated environment. So whenever you start with an audit, don't you just first of all understand what is the environment in which the entity is operating? So when you are understanding the environment, right, in accordance with SA 315, you understand the entity, you understand its environment, including its internal control, so as to identify and assess the ROMM. Do you remember, right? So for us, when we are understanding the environment of the entity, now that our entity is operating in an automated environment, right? So now it guides us to how do you assess or understand the automated environment of the entity. And after you assess or understand, definitely you need to document. And how do we document? In accordance with SA 230. So as per SA 230, we need to also document how our understanding is developed for an automated environment. And similarly, we need to first of all, in accordance with SA 315, and give an understanding towards this automated environment. So let's see, understanding of automated environment is a required as per SA 315. Mark this important, this reference is very important. SA 315 reference and SA 230 reference. So understanding wise we'll give a reference of what? Understanding wise we'll give a reference of 315, and for documenting there is just one line that you need to document as per SA 230. That's it. You need to document as per SA 230. All this, everything that you have gone through, understand through, the understanding of the entire company's automated environment is to be done as per SA 230. The documentation has to be done as per SA 230. Now let's see how do you understand it. So unlike any other environment also, we'll first of all go through all the policies, procedures, right, and the processes which is followed. So take a walkthrough of the process, how this system works. We do the entry, whose approval is required, and then where does it flow, to which account does it goes, and then what happens. So the process walkthrough in an automated environment has to be carried out, and that is what we need to first understand: the policy, procedure, and processes that is being followed. Policy, procedure, and the processes that is being followed. Policies, procedure, and the process, triple P, PPP. Policies, procedure, and processes that is being followed. Then you will also understand the structure and governance. Structure and governance is very important. As I told you, in the case of automated environment, even if we give access to even a single employee to the servers of the entity, and if he makes any unchanged errors, like, right, so that will hugely impact the entire entity, entire organization. So there has to be a proper organization structure, and similarly there has to be a governance mechanism as well. Similarly, IT risk and controls, that means what? Because of IT, what all risks are there? Because of IT, what all risks are there? Do you remember this question that we did in SA 315? Risk to internal control imposed by IT. Yes, Nupur. Risk to internal control imposed by IT.
Sir, unauthorized access to database,
Correct. Similar
manual
2 3 points.
intervention,
Manual intervention, okay.
unauthorized changes,
Unauthorized changes to data and unauthorized
lo-
changes.
loss of data, And
Loss of
unauthorized
data,
changes to system and programs.
right?
Mm,
Do you remember that
That
first point? We used to have fun. Rajnikant wala.
inaccurately processing data or processing inaccurate data.
Correct. Then after this loss that you just mentioned, that loss of data, were you able to access the data again? Were you able to access the lost data again? No. Remember,
No.
MI, because of MI, they lost the data and they were not able to access the data back. So that was also one point. Manual intervention, loss of data, not ability entities not having ability to access the data.
Mm,
Similarly, giving access to someone more than what is required will lead to destruction of data or data reorganization, restructuring, or any sort of damaging in the data. So more or less, you have covered everything that is what are risks in internal control imposed by IT. Risk in internal control which is imposed by IT. Similarly, so we have to understand this also in accordance with SA 315. Last point. Now, the applications that are being used by the company, what all applications are being used? Just like I gave you an example, they are using ERP. Now, as an LTSL, they are also using one other designing software that I mentioned you of 6 month, 2 crore charges. Similarly, there would be so many other applications which are being used by the entity, which are being used by the company. So you need to understand the entire applications process software, how is it in operating, and then lastly all the IT infrastructure components for each application. So quickly tell me components or of IT infrastructure or layers of IT environment, layers of automated environment. Yes, Pooja, layers of automated environment. Just now we did.
हार्डवेयर एंड सॉफ्टवेयर, फिर ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम, डेटाबेस, नेटवर्क डिवाइसेस, उसके लिए नेटवर्क चाहिए, फिर फिजिकल एंड एनवायरमेंटल लैंडस्केप,
फिजिकल एंड एनवायरमेंटल लैंडस्केप के अंदर क्या क्या था? What were there in?
आईटी फैसिलिटीज लाइक फिजिकल एक्सेस कंट्रोल मैकेनिज्म जैसे कि सीसीटीवी,
Correct.
सेंट्रलाइज्ड एसी,
HVAC system.
फायर सेपरेशन सिस्टम,
Right. And Krish wala, Krish movie.
बायोमेट्रिक.
Correct. So now that we have an understanding of the automated environment, now we will have to document the same in accordance with SA 230. If we have done this in accordance with SA 230, now the question arises, how do we exactly document? So what we used to do in LNT when we ask for all the applications that the entity use, we used to give them the list of all the applications. Then in the next column, we would ask the purpose of using this application. Then again in the next column, we'll ask that this application, is it being made by you? As because LNT also has their team of engineers, so they can have this in-house creation of the applications or softwares, or they can have it made from other parties, third party, like package softwares or custom tailor made, but that is being made by the third party. So then the next column would ask that the source code is with whom. If that application that is being created by the third party, the source code is with whom, because the source code owner has to be LNT. If they are not the source code owner, then the next time onwards whatever changes they want to make in their application, they will have to reach out to the maker of the application, and if he doesn't allow, then they won't be able to make the changes. So ownership has to be with the LNT for source code, and there were so many findings that we had also done in this area, particularly 2 3 applications the source code was not with LNT, and this was a critical IT lapse that was raised to audit committee. So not all lapses are raised by the internal audit to the audit committee, but this lapse was particularly raised to the audit committee as well, because now that when we asked to the application maker for the source code ownership, the application maker was charging more for the transfer of ownership of source code. But if had we been just agreed in the initial phase only while agreeing in the contract itself, then it would have cost us less. So that is why this was also raised in the higher authorities. So these all way you can just document application used for what purpose, then what is the database, and which operating system does this application requires to be used, then which network does it requires, and the servers in which this storage and everything is happening for this application. So that is how you can document, and they have asked this documentation for 1 mark in recent attempt, I think May 2022. They have asked this for 1 mark document. They've asked this for 3 marks. Then 231 mark will be to reference, to give it the reference that documentation has to be done in accordance with, let's say, 231 mark, and then accordingly after that 1 mark example will be there. So they have also asked for May 20, yeah, they are given also here. May 21-22 question 1C compulsory question. Question also asked for example of understanding. Apart from this, the same question which was asked in my attempt November 2020, they've also just added one more point that give us one example. This was given in study mat. This was given in StudyMat for 3-4 application. They have given the list that how do we exactly document, but this was not included in my book till May 2022. But now that I have seen that they can ask even from a table or anything from anywhere, I have thought of including everything. So I have included everything, be it whatever. So last page you will see that these are all in the form of tables, which you will generally find that okay, it's hard to retain, understand and recollect, but we'll go through even that portion also, because now we don't know from where they will ask from this chapter. Okay, so for 1 mark they had asked this also. Just go through the question beside this, and then we'll move on to the next question. Fatafat. Jhala, jhala or not? So come to next question now. Consideration of automated environment at each phase of audit cycle. So we'll go through 3 phase of audit cycle here. One is respect to risk assessment and your internal controls, understanding. Then the second phase would be to test of controls, test of controls. And then third stage would be to reporting stage. So in all this phase, in all the 3 phases of audit cycle, we have to consider what? We have to consider what? Automated environment in each phase of audit cycle. So the first phase, that is during risk assessment, you will consider that because of automated environment, what additional risk that I need to consider. Because of automated environment, because of IT, what all additional risk I need to consider during the phase of risk assessment. So during risk assessment, auditor will consider the risk that may arise because of use of IT system at the company, which we just gone through. The answer that was given by Nupur, right? Risk arising from the use of IT, risk because of IT that is imposed on the internal controls. So during the risk assessment, there could be a certain risk which is imposed on internal control, as well as other risk as well, inherent risk, additional new risk. That everything we need to consider while doing the risk assessment. Similarly, when you are doing the walkthrough of the process, right? Walkthrough is to understand the how the the process flow, the business process, everything. So when you are doing that, you have to assume the IT system involvement also in there, right? Not just assume, but you have to understand how the IT is helping or smoothing out the process, and is there any deficiency or lacunae in the entire system, IT system in particular. So the use of IT system and application should be considered. IT system ka use and application has to be considered. Then while assessing the entity level controls, the aspects related to IT governance need to be understood and also needs to be reviewed. So entity level controls and pervasive control, we'll go through this in detail later on in the chapter, but I'll just give you a glimpse of what is entity level controls. So entity level control is any control which is forming part of the entire entity as a whole. That means affecting the entire entity. You can think of it as a IT governance mechanism, tools for that is being implemented in the entity. Example, vigil mechanism, audit committee, or whistleblower mechanism. So these all tools or these all controls that is within the entity are affecting the entity as a whole, right? Are affecting the entity as a whole. And that is what they are saying, that while you are assessing the entity level control, the aspect that needs to be assessed here is importantly is with respect to what IT governance, because when there is an automated environment, there is an involvement of IT. So we need to particularly assess that proper corporate governance is being implemented or not with respect to IT. If there is any lacuna in the IT governance itself, if the entity level controls are not proper, then definitely the controls in later on, the small controls like application controls or whatever controls that you will see will also be impacted, right? If the you can say the if the foundation base is not proper, then how can you can think of that upper layer or any first floor or second floor will be proper, right? So the base, the foundation, the entire thing that is covering the entity has to be proper first of all. So we'll go through the IT governance policies and procedures, everything. And then the pervasive controls, which is kind of those controls which are not directly affecting the entity, but you can say are important to be followed, and therefore these include SOD, general IT controls, and applications should be considered and reviewed. So rain has started finally. Now the entity level control and pervasive controls, and what risk assessment and business process walkthrough. 4 points with respect to risk assessment, internal controls we've gone through, right? So everywhere you have to consider what automated environment. Now during testing phase, now once we started the testing of controls, you will first of all see the general IT control, entity level control or general IT controls, the results of these general IT controls. Because why? Because if the general IT controls have passed, then definitely we will be required to test the other controls very less. So in order for us to smoothen out the further process, we need to test the results of the general IT controls. And if the results of general IT controls are satisfactory, then definitely we will be required to carry out less procedures for the purpose of testing of other controls, which will have what? Which would impact the NTE of testing. And when testing of reports means what? Whenever any report is being issued by the entity and any sort of information is produced by the entity, then in that case, is it being done through IT system and application? And in that case, you need to first of all see that is the input being valid, if at all the input is valid, when the process is being done is correct or not, and ultimately the report that you will test, the output that you will get to is to be tested accordingly. And lastly, the completion stage, that means what? Reporting, everything has to be done through what? Cats. Now the cats will be implemented here. You must have gone through the cats in the IPCC as well. You must be aware about this computer assisted audit tools. Computer assisted audit tools example, you can think of what? Computer assisted audit tools example you can think of is like idea. There are so many software inbuilt by the big fours or even the forensic audit firms. They use cats for the purpose of risk identification or risk of fraud or any sort of things that they need to obtain. So that is all our entire answer, that is consideration of automated environment at each and every phase of audit cycle. Either you can write this or you can write this also. These two answers are generally given in the suggested answer. Just go through this: planning, execution, and completion. These are the three phases of the audit cycle, and in each phase we have risk assessment, understand and evaluate, testing, then finally reporting. Kind of similar to what we just did in above, but I believe the above answer is more easy as compared to this answer. You can go through this answer also right now and let me know which answer you feel will be more comfortable with and going forward with that answer. So this is an important question that they have also asked in November 2022 exam. So go through this again, once again, and then we'll start with enterprise risk management. Enterprise risk management, that means what? A system by which we are managing the risk enterprise wide, entity wide, we are managing the risk. So be it any risk in the entity, that will be covered by what? Enterprise risk management. So enterprise risk management, they have first of all started with what? Examples of risk that an entity faces generally. So these are the examples of risk that an entity generally faces, and this was asked for May 19 for 5 marks. This was asked in May 19 for 5 marks. So you can see few risk here is what? Market risk, technology security risk, operational risk, credit risk, environmental risk. If you are done your what? SFM, you will find that most of the risks are already there in your chapter of interest rate risk management, I believe, or war was which in which chapter? War calculation. It's in interest rate risk management, or it was a separate chapter? Are you all, have you all done SFM or not? SFM not done? You all have your exams in November or next November? June, July, August, September, October. So market risk, technology risk, just to, you know, I just reminded you something, that how you are going to spend your Sunday. Okay? Credit risk and then environmental risk. Then regulatory and compliance risk, right? Like the laws and regulation, those are also has to be followed. If not, then there could be a compliance risk, compliance issue. Then financial reporting risk as well. Business partner risk, right? Like you must be feeling life partner risk. Similarly, there is also business partner risk. What if our business partner only defaults? Then product or project risk. What if the product fails, project fails? And lastly, the liquidity risk. So liquidity wise, you will find liquidity risk, credit risk, operational risk, market risk, regulatory and compliance risk. These five risks are already you will be covering in detail in SFM. Now, other than that, you can just remember your life partner risk, or your business partner is same. Like if suppose your life partner is same your business partner, then the same risk, product or project risk, financial reporting risk, and then technology security and environmental risk. Environmental risk is very important as well, particularly for manufacturing entities. If they are not complying with the environmental laws or regulation, then not only there would be a regulatory or compliance risk from as per environment act. Environment act is there, but there will also be a pressure which you will all face because of the society. So societal pressure will also be faced, has to be faced by the entity which is particularly into manufacturing and not focusing much on environmental protection. So environmental risk is there, technology and security risks are also there. So each and all the risk, everyone will be managed by the ERM. So they have first of all asked you, what do you mean by risk? Risk, they have told you that something which can go wrong or event happening that prevents achievement of the objective of the company. That means what risk is? Anything which can go wrong, right? We don't say that risk is anything which is not exactly happening according to us. What if it happens better than what we expected? Then that is not risk, right? You expected that you will complete your SFM in 2 months, right? But what if you complete it in 1 month? Do you feel that it is a risk of completing SFM in 1 month instead of 2 months? Do you think that it is a risk or not? Or do you think the risk is that completing of SFM in 3 months instead of 2 months? Bolo bolo. So
Yes,
risk,
sir. It is the risk, but it falls in what area it won't consider, like operational risk or something else.
come again. I'm not able to hear.
It is the risk if we complete SFM in 1 month.
Is it a risk?
Yeah,
How come?
we should complete. We should complete it in 2 months. But if we complete it in 1 month, then it is also a risk
But
because वो proper
you are getting better results na, than expected. You'll be now able to revise twice after 1 month completion of first revision. So
yes,
overall, instead of one revision in 2 months, you will now revise 3 times in 2 months.
yes,
So
sir. Okay.
what if ठीक से नहीं किया in 1 month, then you will perform again in next 1 month. So overall, you will perform better na in 2 months. How is that a risk, Dhanlakshmi?
Yes. Yes, sir.
So risk is something that can go wrong or event happening that prevents achievement of the objective of the company. So risk management is what again your entire ERM has to do, right? Enterprise risk management will have to manage your risk. That is again what combination of people, process, and technology through which companies identify the risk, then they assess the risk, respond the risk, mitigate the risk, and monitor whether they have properly mitigated the risk or not. So ERM is nothing but a formal program, like what we learned yesterday, chapter 3. Do you remember COSO, COBIT, COSO, COBIT? These are all what framework, right? Which can be implemented by the company. Similarly, ERM is a formal program which can be implemented by the company to mitigate all the risks that occurs within the entity, within the enterprise. So it's a formal program enabled across the enterprise to manage the risk. Globally, companies are always required to have a formal ERM at place. That means what, if you in US, UK, wherever you go, there will, the law will be requiring you to implement the ERM. In India we have Companies Act, and Companies Act में section 134 tells, section 134 of the Companies Act require board report to indicate the robustness of the risk management process in the entity. So in section 134, in the director responsibility statement, if you are aware about DRS, that will also come across in company audit chapter, section 134 subsection 3 clause C, director responsibility statement. So in DRS they have to specifically mention, in the board's report they have to specifically mention how comfortable they are, how comfortable board is with respect to what, with respect to risk management process. Is the risk management process robust enough to mitigate all the risk, to comprehend all the risk? And that is what they are saying, implementation of a RM policy for the company, including identification therein elements of risk which in the opinion of the board may threaten the existence of the company. And when while the law makes the BOD responsible, so as per law BOD is responsible for reporting that are they having the robust implemented risk management process or not. But however, it is the responsibility of each and every employee, right? For us, if suppose I am being held responsible for completing audit in the given time frame, right? But again, it is according to law, it would be, might be my responsibility, or according to the customs it might be my responsibility. But isn't it that it is the responsibility of you all to do the homework, to solve the questions that I give the homework, essay questions, and then also to give timely test, timely revise, take some time. So it is the responsibility of everyone. That is what they are saying, that board responsible, and ERM of a company is implemented by the board's top management and employees across all levels. So even if BOD is responsible, but actual responsibility lies amongst all. ठीक है. Now come to ERM versus internal control. ERM versus internal control. What do you think is more? What do you think is broader, and which one is narrower? ERM or internal control?
ERM is broader, sir.
Why so?
Sir, because it manages all the risk that has been scattered all over the entity, na? And internal control is just a function.
Internal control also addresses the risk. In fact, it also tries to address all the risk, not just accounting risk or accounting related problems, but also administrative. Right? Do you remember the scope of internal control we saw in chapter 3 or SA 315? Right? So the scope was not just accounting function, it was also relating to administrative function. But more, you can say enterprise risk is addressing the entire gamut of the risk that can fall in the entity. So it tends to be proactive in nature, in the sense that they will expect whatever risk that the entity can face, and will already have a formal program, because this is a formal program which is implemented enterprise wide, and is a formal program which is being implemented across entire nation or entire world, right? So everyone has been implementing ERM based on the risk which has once or everyone has faced. Everyone else might have faced other risks. So there are certain testing that we also do. um, Testing as in how an entity can fall. So particularly for banks, like I was covering federal bank now, so particularly for banks, we don't forecast, we actually do what, stress testing, that we stress the financial numbers of the banks, because banks we can't forecast how much sales it will generate or how much revenue it will generate. We are just concerned with what? Banks as an economy. So banks are really close to the economy. So those are linked to the economy as a whole. So we do overall top-down analysis. That is, first of all, economy has to be analyzed. How is the economic scenario, current economic scenario, and then industry, banks as a whole. And then finally, we stress the numbers of the banks. So in the stressing, while we do the stress testing, we took various scenarios. So Asian crisis scenario, European market crisis happened, then 2008 crisis. So there are so many scenarios happened, and accordingly we select the number that is being stressed the most according to the various scenarios that the world has faced, right? So ERM, you can say, is like the problem which the everyone has faced and is proactive and is everything it knows already, everything it knows already, and is more broader as compared to internal control. Similarly, ERM is not intended to and does not replace the internal control, and ERM expands on internal control. ERM expands on internal control. That means, that is really important line. What do you think? I can say that ERM is the papa and IC is our beta, right? So ERM is papa, IC is our beta. And do you think any papa intends to replace his son? No. There is no such kind of intention for any father to replace his son, and neither he can do so. For any mother, think from mother's point of view, can father replace son? No. Can father replace son? No. And there is no intention, and it does not replace as well. It does not replace as well, and there is no such intention. Just to make it, you all learn this line. So take it any sort of like example. So ERM is not intended to, and neither does it replaces the internal control. It is not intention of the ERM as well, and neither it can replace the internal control. But however, ERM includes within it the internal control as well. So within ERM you will find internal control, because ERM is an expansion of the internal control. So you will see here that, but rather incorporates the internal control framework within it, ERM. Now, companies may decide to look to ERM both to satisfy their internal control needs and to move forward to a fuller risk management process. That means they can implement ERM, thereby saying that yes, our IC is also satisfied, internal control framework is also implemented, and we have also moved towards the fuller risk management process. However, the ICF of company is not separate, though it is an integral part of ERM only. That means what? Son is an integral part of father, right? Now the scope wise, if I see, ERM is broader as compared to ICF and encompass both internal and external factors. Like I told, they consider each and every factors that might impact the entity. EM crisis or whatever crisis you can think of, everything is being considered that are relevant to the business strategy, governance, business process, and transaction. Focus of internal control framework, however, is on primarily on financial reporting, operations, compliance, laws and regulations associated within an account balance, business process and transaction and activity level. So business process level, activity level like P2P process, P2P, OTC process, transaction level, account balance level. So internal control generally focuses on these only, right? However, enterprise risk management is a wider expansion version of the internal control, and which focuses on the entire gamut of the sectors that you can think of in an entity. And therefore, they have said what? It's a subset of the ERM. So IC is a subset and ERM is a set. You must have gone through math or not, but I don't know. But you must be aware about set, subset, right? Set, and this is what? Subset, and this is set. So this also has not yet been asked. ERM versus internal control. ERM versus internal control. MCQ they have given that COSO framework that we saw yesterday. Remember COSO framework, which was come in 2014, and then I told you that it was further amended to in 2017 to reduce the principles to 17 principles. They have reduced it to, right? So that COSO framework only they are talking about is the most important critical ERM. Any doubt? Now come to considerations which is involved in the risk assessment process. So they said that the critical component, the most critical component of any enterprise risk management is the risk assessment process. That is the key thing, right? For any ERM, that it should identify the risk, right? And then accordingly assess, is it material or anything. So ERM, the main task is to risk assessment, right? So the most critical component of any ERM is what? Risk assessment process. Now how exactly are you going to do the risk assessment process? In the case of ERM, they have given it, need not worry. But what all things auditor needs to consider? So the risk assessment process involves considerations for, the risk assessment process involves considerations for. So you need to consider what, how data are being used in the ERM, what metrics is being used in the ERM, benchmarking, ERM benchmarking. Just now I told you what, they are considering other benchmarks like Asian crisis, EM crisis, stock market 2008 crisis, right? 2008 crisis, 2010 crisis also happened. So there are so many crises that you can think of, that these are just the example which I am telling, based on banks, based on any stress testing that you might need to take for your analysis. Similarly, qualitative and quantitative factors, there could be so many qualitative and quantitative factors that also needs to be considered for you. Then definition of KPI and RI, key performance indicators, risk indicators. Where do you think the risk lies? Where do you think that I can just relate it to better performance? Then you have to what? Prioritize the risk. Consider the risk as a foremost to identify the risk, and then accordingly assess the risk, and your risk appetite will ultimately have to be considered. How much risk you can take? How much risk you can take? So under to learn all these points, we have just done what? Try to recollect this or imagine this, that one MD is sitting on the bench, your managing director is sitting on the bench, and he बैठ के वहाँ पे is doing nothing but what? Doing what? Quantitative and qualitative factors. He was seeing all the quantitative qualitative factors is there in the match, and then he came out with all the performance key matters or the key indicators, performance indicators. But then he indicated some risk, and therefore he, after indication of the risk, he prioritized the risk, identified the risk, assessed the risk, and after that his appetite got over. His appetite got over. He's got satisfied with the things that he did. So kind of a story, you can link all the points. MD sat on the bench. MD means what? Bolo. M for matrix, D for data, bench for benchmarking. Then quantitative and qualitative factors you already have. Then performance indicator, key indicators, risk indicates. So then you have to identify or prioritize the risk, identify the risk, assess the risk, and your appetite will be over.
Sir, it this consideration related to only automated environment, right?
Yeah.
Not or normal risk assessment process.
No, particularly they are saying that in the risk assessment process, the ERM component, enterprise risk management component, not even automated environment, but in particular ERM they are talking about. So in the ERM, the RAP is the most critical component. So how exactly in the case of ERM are you going to consider the RAP? So you should mark the word ERM here. And in the ERM, RAP is important, is the critical component of the ERM. So what all things are you going to consider for RAP in the case of ERM? Now quickly come to assessing IT related risk and control. Assessing IT related risk and controls. Just now we saw what Nupur gave the answer, right? Do you remember IT related risk and controls? That is risk arising from IT imposed on internal controls. So here also SA 315 and 330 require the auditor to understand, like Nupur understood. The same way he has to also understand, assess, and respond to the risk within a company, including those risks that pertain to the use of IT system and application. Because of the use of IT system and because of the use of applications in an automated environment, what all risks are to be considered. So auditor has to understand, respond, and assess accordingly. So when he is doing so when assessing the IT risk in the automated environment, the auditor will consider the following. He will see the IT risk with respect to entity wide. First of all, entity wide. That is, entity level aspects of the risk has to be considered. That is with respect to governance, organization, management of the IT. Similarly, next he will consider in the processes of the entity, like procure to pay or any other procedure policies in the entity. So the risk in the processes that is being followed, risk in the processes, not the entity. Now, once first of all we have considered the risk in the entire entity as a whole, entity level aspects of the risk. Then secondly, we consider what risk in the IT process procedures, and thirdly we consider the risk in the each layer of automated environment. Right, like the Puja told us what automated environment layers of each and every automated environment layers are what hardware, software, network, storage devices, network devices, LAN networks, LAN 1 VPN, right? Then physical and environmental aspects of the controls, database, software, operating system. These are all what my layers of automated environment. So there also I have to consider these risks in the layers of automated environment. So go through the examples for each point and tell me the first point that you see, the first example in the example, all the three example that you see in the first point. This, what can you relate to? This, what, which answer can you relate this to? Yes, are you able to recall or not? Which points, which answer? कुछ हिट हो रहा है या कुछ भी नहीं समझ आ रहा? Yes, yes or no? At least say that.
Sir, first the inquiry, right?
हाँ.
First, management established an IT security policy, that is inquiry. We are inquiring whether it is there or not.
So I'm asking about this, whether it is communicated to all employees, then you give proper training, right? And then you check upon them whether they are properly being trained. After being trained, whether is it properly implemented now by all the employees, and if not, you also take the disciplinary action. These 4 points we learned in a flow. Components of internal control. Okay, you are seeing this information communication monitoring. I am asking about this. You communicated to all employees. Then after communication, you ensured that they are being trained properly, informed properly, communicated, right? And after being trained, you then monitored them. And if they failed to implement again, then you took disciplinary action. Do you recall this flow that we went through in one of our answer in SA, standards on auditing?
Yes, sir, yes, sir. But which one?
SA 220, which answer, Dhanlakshmi? I'll not just ask SA number.
Non-compliance with the laws and regulation.
Yeah, laws and regulation. Then which answer? Management's responsibility. Management's responsibility. Do you remember that answer? You have to maintain a register of all the laws that is applicable to the entity. Then we employed one legal advisor since we were not able to monitor. So the legal advisor told us to do what? To maintain or implement a register and have a glimpse of all the laws which is applicable to us. So we told him, don't worry, we'll not only implement the register, but we'll also implement a code of conduct. And then we'll communicate this code of conduct to all the employees, proper implementation of internal control. Then we'll also train all the employees and monitor whether they are complying with the code of conduct or not. And if not, we'll also take the disciplinary action against them. Do you remember? Yes or no? आगे पार्ट पीछे सपाट हो रहे क्या बस? Still not able to recall, or SA 250 first answer? SA 250 first answer. So risk in the IT process and procedure that is being followed, and the IT risk at each layer of automated environment. So that is our overall what consideration or assessing the IT risk in an automated environment. The auditor will be consider all the 3 points, that is entity wide, then process wide, and then layers wide. You can just in short write like this only: entity wide, process wide, and then layers of automated environment layers wide. Correct? Now come to controls to mitigate the above IT risk. So just now we saw what 3 types of risk, 3 risk in 3 areas. One is entity wide, then process wide, and then layers wide. Now all this risk, when we assess in an automated environment, thereafter we'll see what all controls can be implemented to mitigate the above IT risk, to mitigate the above risk. So there are generally 3 controls: general IT control, application control, and IT dependent control. General IT controls, application controls, and IT dependent controls. So first come to general IT controls, which we also called it as what? Pervasive control or indirect controls. Pervasive controls or indirect controls. So general IT controls, you will find that this is implemented in the entity wide. Overall entity wide, there are certain policies and procedure, and this is not certain application specific. In fact, they support all other applications. They are being maintained, relate, you can relate it to many other applications. That is not one application wide, one application specific. It is what? All application specific, required for all the applications, and in fact support the effective functioning of application controls. So application controls, you will feel that no, this is application specific. These controls apply to that application only and will support the functioning of that application only. But general IT controls are like controls example with respect to how do you actually buy the application, how do you maintain the application, how do you update the application, data center wise, storage wise, server wise, any changes that needs to be application in any application, be it any application, how do you make those changes, any system update that you need to make, how do you give access security to those applications. These are all what? General controls which applies to all the application, right? Be it any application, accounting application, designing application, any application, this will, all these controls will apply to all the application and will support the effective functioning of entire application controls also. And therefore we call it was, this will apply to mainframe, miniframe, end user environment, everyone, and maintain to integrity of the information and security of data, and includes control over following. So generally they ask with example, tell us what is general IT control with example for 5 marks. Then this 5 example you will give, this 5 example you will give, important. So first I told you that how exactly do you acquire the application, do you buy the application or do you made in-house, do you make in-house applications or do you buy the application, and then how do you develop it and how do you then maintain the application. Similarly, same goes with system software, any software that you either acquire or whether how do you maintain exactly, how do you maintain exactly, and changes in system software. Similarly, is there any change in program, there is any data center or network operation that needs to be taken care of, like servers, right? Network operations. And lastly, access security. Access security will be what? Access security, internal controls. So these are all what? My general IT controls which applies to all applications, supports all application. So applies to mainframe, miniframe, end user environment, everyone, everywhere. These are all what? My general IT control. Can you see this? What is this? बोलो भाई फटाफट.
Some.
Samosa, right?
Yeah.
So we'll just from now on take a pledge that whenever you eat samosa or whenever you see, these are not nachos, these are samosas. It's a 2D picture, but you can see in the entire plate. Can you see the plate? In the entire plate, it's only three big samosas are there. So it's not nachos. Nachos are not that big. So these are samosas. So we, whenever you now you will eat samosas, just remember this answer. Then only you can eat the samosa. Take a pledge. Before eating the samosa, I'll be recalling this answer which is what, A 2 plate samosa का excess security दे, 2 plate samosa, that means what, 2 plate samosa, you need what, excess securities. So A for application, D for data center, P for program change, samosa S for system software, and excess security, excess security, excess security, excess security. So have you taken the pledge or not? Whenever you take samosa from the samosa bhaiya, you will first of all tell him the answer, then give him the money, and then only take the plate. ये 2 प्लेट समोसा का एक्सेस सिक्योरिटी चाहिए. सो एप्लीकेशन डेवलपमेंट, एक्विजिशन, मेंटेनेंस, एवरीथिंग, राइट? सो D for data changes, data program change, P for program changes, and then S for system security, system software updates, changes, maintenance, right? Acquisition, and lastly what, access security. General IT controls. Now comes what, application control. It's a normal class timing, it will run till 11. Do you want samosa break or what, Sagar? That is why.
Yes, yes, sir.
Yes, sir,
We
please,
need.
sir.
ठीक है, 9:40.
Sir, 45 कर दो
No,
please, sir.
sir, 45 or 50.
No, no, no. Are you going to like specially going to outside for eating samosa?
Yeah.
Order, order. Simply order.
Yes, sir.
9:45. ठीक है.
Okay, sir.
Sony, how much samosa have you ordered? How many samosa? No samosa. Kachori. Application controls. What were we studying? We were going through, first of all, we saw IT assessed risk. That means risk assessed which are due to automated environment in the IT, right? IT assess risk, risk in IT, risk IT assessing IT risk in the automated environment. And in these three risks that we identified, then we saw that there are three controls to mitigate this risk in the layers of automated environment, in the process level, and in the entity levels, right? In the entity wide. So first we covered what, general IT controls. Now let's cover our application controls. So application controls, as I told you, will relate specifically to application. So suppose SAP, then whatever controls are there with respect to SAP are the what, are SAP, or sorry, are application control, application control. So this include both, this include automated as well as manual. Operate at a business process level, business process level. Why are they saying that this operate at a business process level? Because these are generally used for the process like P2P, OTC. So you'll find for each and every process there could be either a same application or could be different applications. But applications are generally, you will find it that these are for process levels, process levels. So generally application controls also operate at a business process level, and they include both automated, manual, preventive, detective. That is, प्रिवेंटिव भी है, डिटेक्टिव भी है, ऑटोमेटेड भी है, मैनुअल भी है, राइट? टेस्ट भी, हेल्थ भी, सॉर्ट ऑफ लाइक दैट. टेस्ट भी, हेल्थ भी, प्रिवेंटिव भी, डिटेक्टिव भी, ऑटोमेटेड भी, मैनुअल भी. सो व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय प्रिवेंटिव और डिटेक्टिव? प्रिवेंटिव एज वेल एज डिटेक्टिव इन नेचर. प्रिवेंटिव एज वेल एज डिटेक्टिव इन नेचर. प्रिवेंटिव और डिटेक्टिव, द नेम itself suggests ना, the controls are preventive or controls are detective. What do you think it means?
रिस्क को डिटेक्ट करता है कि है कि नहीं करके, और प्रिवेंट मतलब ये कि अगर रिस्क पकड़ा गया है तो उसे मतलब रिस्क को आगे बढ़ने से रोकना, प्रिवेंट करना, देन प्रिवेंटिव.
So controls could either be preventive in nature or either could be detective in nature, not just application control. For any sort of control, for all the controls that exist, it could either be preventive or could be detective. So suppose example, if I say that PAN number, if you will see that the person status you will feed is suppose proprietor or any sort of individual, right? Individual. So fourth letter should be P then, right? Fourth letter should be P, and the fifth letter should be in accordance with your name. In accordance with your name, if my name is Yash Chandak, then fifth letter should be C. And similarly, overall, the entire letters in the pen should not exceed 10. Now, if any of the condition does not exist, if any of the condition does not exist, it shows an error. It shows an error, right? It shows an error. So, do you think this is a preventive control or detective control? What do you think it is? A preventive control or detective?
Preventive.
Preventive, right? It is preventing you from going ahead and committing a mistake. It is beforehand only making you preventing you from committing any mistake. So this is preventive in nature. However, some detective controls could be like maker checker. Whenever there is a control of maker checker, right? So one who will make will not check, but the other person will check. That is what a detective control. Detective control in the sense you have made the same. Now I'll check and detect any error in if at all. It is not preventive in nature, but as if in detective in nature. So preventive as well as detective in nature, the controls could be application controls could be either preventive, detective, could be automated, and could be manual, and relates to procedure used to initiate, record, process, and report the transactions. Now again, there they have given you the examples. So examples again we'll write the kind of application control. Just now let's see, there is one reasonable check. Similarly, sequence number check, that is after 3 4 if you write 6, then they will give you an error that it should be 5. It's sequence number check. Mandatory data field, you must have seen this star hash, red star wherever the field in the field it's red star, then you need to fill that fields mandatorily, right? Similarly, limit check is what? It should not exceed 1 lakh. The orders should not exceed 2 for a particular user, then that is what? A limit check. The orders in the card should not exceed 2 for a single person. It's a limit check, right? Then validation of input data, like kind of what we see in the case of PAN number, just now what we saw above. Validation of input. Edit check means what? Whenever you edit, it throws an error or it shows an pop-up that you are supposed to doing an audit, it might need an approval, or it might need this or that, or any sort of control in editing case as well. And then format check, range check would be what I told you, like suppose in the PR, purchase requisition note, PRN, it was saying 2 tons of whatever you raw material you require. And then in purchase order it is showing what? 2.5 tons. Then this will show an error range check, which will tell you what? Suppose only 2% of deviation is allowed, so max to max in the PO it could be how much? 2.04, right? 2.04 ton. And only this much, either 2.04 or either 1.96 ton. This much deviation is only allowed from PRN, not more than this. So it could what? Show an range check, or it could also be an existence check. Are you getting this? All sort of checks that can be implemented in the application controls, in the application as an application control. So let's just try to learn all this. It's very easy to understand, but also important for us is to retain all these examples. So have you all solved this RS Agrawal in your 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, whenever you were solving maths? RS Agrawal, RD Sharma, do you remember? Yes or no?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So don't you think RS was mandatory for you to solve? Because then you will have a good image in front of your friends that we are not only just solving NCRT, we are also doing solving what? RS, RD. It was mandatory for you to show off, right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So RS was mandatory to solve, but do you think there were a limited number of questions, or do you think that no limit of questions, unlimited questions? No limit, right? There was no limit of questions, and also some questions were not proper, not valid. Some questions were not valid, so we needed what? we needed to edit those questions. So RS was mandatory. So from RS is what? Reasonable check. S for sequence check. Mandatory say. Mandatory check. Mandatory data field. RS was mandatory to solve, but no limit of question. No limit say limit of checks. Limit check, sorry. Then also few questions were not valid. So validity check, validity of input, validation of input, and then edit check is what? Your edit. You need to also edit few questions. So there comes edit check. And last is simple format check, range check, existence check. You can simply tell. Even if you are able to recall 6 out of this 9 example, that is more than sufficient. Clear? Now just go through the MCQ beside this. It's an MCQ by ICI only. Any doubt in that MCQ?
The preventive, this is the preventive answer will be preventive control, but it itself is the application control. So can we write in the answer?
But when the specific, like the specific act overrides the general act, specific section overrides the general section. So kind of that concept you can see here, that specifically if they have given you whether is it preventive or detective, then you will definitely choose that. ठीक है?
Yes.
Now come to IT dependent control. So what is IT dependent control? These are manual controls. So these are manual control, not IT controls. These are manual controls, but they derive their inputs from IT. They derive their inputs from IT. So manual controls that make use of some form of data or some form of information usage is generated from IT. So whatever information you use, whatever data you use, it is what? From IT systems and application. Manual controls that make use of some form of data or information, and information is coming from IT system and application. So control performed manually. Control is what? Manual. Control is manual. But design and effectiveness of such control depends upon the reliability of source data, and the source data is driven out of where? The source data is coming from IT. Example, if I can quickly give you, you must have be aware about ECL provisioning, right? ECL provisioning in Ind AS 109. It's for probability of default. Probability of default into loss given default. Probability of default is into loss given default. Suppose probability of default is say 10%, and loss given default is suppose 50%. That means what? Probability is that 10% probability is there that he might default. Since 1 month he has not paid to us, after becoming due he might default. Probability is 10%. And if he actually defaults, then the loss will be how much? 50%. So 50% amount we won't be able to recover. So overall we have what? 5% of ECL that we need to make. ECL provisioning 5% we need to make. So now this 10%, 50%, from where are we getting out? So this 10% we will be seeing that aging analysis. So debtors due in 0 to 1 month, then 1 month to 2 months, then 2 to 3 months, then 3 to 6 months, then 6 to 1 year, then more than 1 year since they have not paid. So accordingly, the data will be generated from the system, but based on which set of number we are going to apply which, how much of the POD and how much of the LGD, and accordingly how much of the ECL provisioning. So it is kind of an control which is dependent on the source data. Like this is the source data. If much figure is falling here, we'll apply maybe loss probability of default might be 2%, and loss given default may be 50% based on our past experience or whatever. So probability of default will increase as and when we move it or shift to more than due months, right? So that is what they are saying, that require the general IT controls to be effective, because if general IT controls are effective, then all this data, the source data that we are getting are reliable, will be reliable. And since we saw that because effectiveness and reliability of automated application controls is of utmost importance, therefore also general IT controls also needs to be very much effective. So again, if I say controls are performed manually, yes, controls are performed manually. Design and effectiveness will depend on reliability of data. Reliability of data will be more can be derived from the effectiveness of the automated application controls IT dependent controls therefore requires what? IT dependent control require the general IT controls also to be efficient, to be effective. Got it everyone? IT dependent controls. The controls are manual, however, they depend on the information which is generated from IT. Similarly, general IT control versus application control, they have given the difference, but I have already told you. General IT controls are needed to support the functioning of application control. However, both are needed to ensure complete and accurate information processing through IT system. Let's come to now entity level controls. Entity level controls. Evaluating risk and controls at entity level. Entity level controls. Quickly tell me, do you remember these 5 components? Control environment, risk assessment, information and communication, monitoring of controls, and control activities. These are the components of internal control. Now don't see this. Out of these 5 components, try to tell me which of the component of internal control, which one component of the internal control do you feel, do you think that will not lie in internal entity level control, that will not lie in entity level control, rather it will lie in process level control? Which component do you feel, do you think? Just try to recall the components, try to recall the concepts, and link with entity level control. Entity level control, if I have to give a glimpse, it operates at a company at all levels, that is from board of directors to the department until the transaction employee level. That means it is implemented entity wide. Example could be whistleblower policy. Example, whistleblower policy is an entity level control because it is affecting entire entity, right? The control is implemented entity wide, affecting the entire entity, and it is called as what? Entity level control. Just to give you an example. Now, out of all the 5 components of IC, which control do you feel that will not fall in entity level control? ELC पे नहीं fall होगा? बोलो फटाफट सोच के, जो भी आ रहा है मन में. Yes, Nikita. If you'll think now, you'll not forget later. You'll tend to recall again whenever you start revising entity level control. You'll quickly remember this, at least that we thought this in class. I was wrong maybe, but then I was right. Risk assessment process. Huh? Arnab?
Control activity in the activity
Control
level.
activity. Arnab is saying control activity. Pooja is saying RAP. Yes, anyone else?
Sir, control activities related
Control
to audit.
activities. Yes, anyone
Yes.
else? Nikita, Nupur, Suneshwaran, Dhanlakshmi, Krupali.
कंट्रोल एक्टिविटी सर.
सर मॉनिटरिंग भी हो सकता है.
Monitoring तो we perform na. Monitoring of entity level
ओवरऑल
controls also have to be monitored. Monitoring in the sense that controls are not got inefficient, or they are still adequate enough to mitigate the controls, to mitigate the risk. So monitoring has to happen at all levels.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, Krupali, what was
सर
you
आई
saying?
सेड कंट्रोल एक्टिविटीज लाइक
Con-
कंट्रोल एक्टिविटी स्पेसिफिक होगा ना, बाकी सब हर जगह अप्लाई होगी
so control
लाइक
activities specific to
स्पेसिफिक
activities like
एंड
P2P, OTC, right? These are process level driven controls, control activities. What we saw in control, SAW drip. Do you remember SAW drip? Segregation of duty, performance review, right? Information system. So that is why control activity will fall outside this internal control. Out of all the internal control framework, entire 5 components, control activity is the one component which is more or less relating to process level controls or transaction level controls. It will not fall in entity level controls. It will not fall in entity level control. Mark this important. They have not yet tested anywhere. They have not even tested, but they have given in SM. Might be straight away they can ask you in the MCQ. Which of the following components of internal control is not relevant at entity level controls? Okay, so I told you the concept entity level control operates at the entire entity level, right? And from the top management, from the board till the last transaction level. And the characteristics are like they are pervasive, indirect controls, and are part of company's overall ICF. Like I told, whistleblower mechanism. Just try to recall whistleblower mechanism. You'll try to recall all points that they are pervasive in the sense that affects the entire entity as a whole, right? Similarly, they are part of company's overall internal control framework. Yes, they are part. Whistleblower mechanism, whistleblower policy is a part of internal control framework and relate to the internal control components other than control activities. subjective by nature, or definitely entity level controls are subjective, has to be subjective, right? Because they are relating more of top nature entities as well, top nature employees, top level employees, BOD, and hence require application of more professional judgment in their evaluation and testing. So generally the question comes for 5 marks. Explain entity level control including its types of control. So types of entity level controls are two types: direct ELC, indirect ELC. Direct entity level control, indirect entity level control. So direct entity level control are the controls which are able to directly prevent, detect or control, prevent, detect or any sort of misstatement prevention. So direct entity level control operate at a level higher than activity or transaction level, whereas indirect control relate to any specific business process, transaction level or activity level. That means example P2P, transaction level, P2P level, activity level, they will operate at more at activity level. However, direct ELC operate at a level higher than business activity or transaction level. I think everyone is clear with this concept, such as a business process or a sub process level as well. Account balance level at a sufficient level of precision to prevent, detect or correct a misstatement in a timely manner. That means what? They are directly able to prevent, detect or correct the misstatements, directly able to prevent, detect or correct, directly able to PDC in a timely manner. However, indirect control cannot prevent, detect misstatement directly. However, they support the direct entity level controls in a manner that direct entity control can smoothly functions out. So however, they contribute indirectly to the effective operation of direct ELC and other control activities. Example of direct ELC they have given, example of indirect ELC also they have given. Quickly go through the example and let me know if at all is there any doubt that why this example is in direct ELC and not in indirect ELC, or why is it so? It is in indirect ELC but not in direct ELC, or can we include any other example? Quickly go through the examples.
Sir, sir, can you repeat this indirect ELC? Because why it is not can't prevent or detect misstatement? Uh, sir,
Because see, like these are example, you can say suppose whistleblower policy, you will feel that these are not directly, I mean directly not relating to something which will able to prevent, detect or control. Example, your code of conduct or your ethical practice that needs to be followed. So this you cannot take. Yeah, like the policies and procedure that is being implemented, the training that has been given to you, the value that is being created in your mind in the organization. So these are like indirect entity level controls only, the controls which is supporting you to conform to the direct entity level control. You will not now deviate from the performance, deviate from your performance, the code of conduct, the ethical policies, procedures that needs to be followed. These are the indirect entity level control which will not directly prevent or detect, correct or correct the misstatements directly. It will not be able to prevent, detect. However, it will be somewhat, supporting these controls in a way. If you have good ethical practice or good ethical manners, or you are able to follow your code of conduct, policies and procedures, so you are not in a way implementing or preventing or detecting any misstatement, but you are able to follow the path which is being driven by the direct ELCs. So direct ELCs, like example business performance reviews, monitoring of the effectiveness of the control, are the controls still effective or not, then you will be able to monitor quickly, grab quickly, you will not delay the monitoring process, you will review your performances, because you have got those values, you have got those indirect values, indirect entity level controls. So indirectly they are helping you to conform to direct ELCs, not directly.
okay, means they are not bound to prevent or detect, but generally they detect, because if the ethical practice is good, then obviously there will be less risk and less control.
So
Like
but then also you will be doing these 2 points now, these two examples, just to give you an example, you will be performing the business reviews, you will be monitoring it. If you have those values, right, just because you have this code of conduct, policies and procedures, it will not help you to detect any misstatement. When will you detect actually any misstatement has occurred? When will you be able to detect? When you perform the review procedure, when you will perform the monitoring, that okay, I will monitor this in next year whether the controls are still adequate or not. So when you do this direct ELCs, then only you will be able to detect the misstatements. Not just because you are complying with the policies procedure you will be able to detect. Once you comply with the policies procedure, yes, then you will comply that okay, once in a year I have to monitor. So because of these policies, because of this code of conduct, you are able to follow what? Monitoring policies, which is falling under direct ELC. But they are not directly helping you to detect. They are helping you to follow the direct ELCs, which will detect the misstatements. I hope it's clear. Or still any?
Yeah. Yes. Basically, this
Getting
is support level. We can say
right.
in
It
the
is supporting you in a way that तुमको चोरी नहीं करना चाहिए, चोरी नहीं करना है, तुमने चोरी किया, तुम्हारे भैया ने तुमको चोरी करते हुए पकड़ा लिया एंड वो अब तुमको डांट रहे, अगर वो उनके अंदर ये एथिकल वैल्यूज नहीं होती, पापा मम्मी ने नहीं दिया रहता कोड ऑफ कंडक्ट, तो वो तुमको नहीं डांटते, उल्टा तुम्हारे साथ एंजॉय करते, मान लो एग्जाम्पल. बट तुमने जो मिसस्टेटमेंट किया, चोरी किया, और जो उन्होंने डिटेक्ट किया, ही विल डिटेक्ट ओनली वेंस ही हैड दोज वैल्यूज, राइट. अगर वो वैल्यू है, वो सब है, पॉलिसीज है, प्रोसीजर है, दे हैव, यू हैव ऑल दिस प्रोसेसेस बीइंग फॉलोड. So because of that, you will be able to then detect, prevent, or correct you. So go through the examples also, because they ask you the examples as well, with examples of direct ELCs, and also they ask you the examples of indirect ELCs. I believe again this was asked in December 21 exam question. डायरेक्ट टीएलसी के भी एग्जांपल, दोनों एग्जांपल, एंड इनडायरेक्ट टीएलसी के भी एग्जांपल मुंह पे होने चाहिए. बोथ शुड बी ऑन योर लिप्स. टिप्स. Since we have discussed so much, I don't think you will ever forget now. Now the next part of the entity level control has not yet been tested anywhere in any sort of RTP, MTP, be it anywhere. So what does this say? Just don't see. I'll ask you only. Let me know which component of internal control do you feel is more related to ERP environment or automated environment. Which component of internal control do you feel, do you think is the most relevant in the automated environment or the ERP environment? Again, think all the 5 controls. Think what each control means meant to be, and then think and tell which control do you feel is the most relevant in the ERP automated environment.
so as per my said this could be control activities and information and communication.
Information communication, because that was driven by technology, right? Remember, was more of driven by technology. We were seeing the class of transaction, whether the system is actually able to capture the events or transaction, events or condition other than transaction automatically. Similarly, controls surrounding the journal entries, park and post controls. So information and communication component is the most relevant component, if you see from the perspective of ERP environment. So that is what they are also telling them from the perspective of ERP environment. Internal control component that is more relevant is the information and communication component. So they can ask you for 5-mark question that which component of the internal control do you feel is the more relevant for in the ERP environment, and how as you as an auditor will get the understanding, and how you as an auditor will evaluate this component. They will not tell you the component. They might ask you what, how will you evaluate this component the auditor is required to obtain an understanding of. So what, how will you uh, actually evaluate this component of internal control which is more relevant to ERP environment, and what understanding you will obtain as an auditor to evaluate this component, to evaluate this particular component which is more relevant.
Sir, why not control activities too?
Control activities, you can say, in the even in the ERP environment, we are thinking more of technology wise, right? But control activities, suppose it's a direct tax process, or you can say indirect tax process where you are filing everything, and or any other indirect taxes where still now manual filing has to happen. Now like before everything is now getting digitalized, before this everything was suppose manual only, right? So till then also there was a control activity with respect to indirect taxes, with respect to FSCP, financial statement closing process, and similarly with respect to any controls that you can take, there will be any process, any other process, P2P, OTC, any process. So even the OTC process, you can feel that physically we not involving technology, there are certain components even in the OTC process, even in the P2P process. So if we are thinking in the automated ERP environment wise, then that is Yeah, it could be relevant, but it is also relevant for other than ERP environment also. Out of all the 5 components, what you will feel is that in the information and communication component, it is the like the relevance of this component is coming more and more in the ERP environment only, and not where the physically or without any technology or digitally without any digitalization or technology driven process is involved. So where any physical process or any sort of non-digital, non-technology driven process is involved, there you won't feel that information and communication component is much relevant there. So that is why they are saying that out of all 5, this component is more relevant in here, ERP environment, when you are following the technology driven processes. See what all information you will obtain. How does it operate? The relevant information system used in the processing of business transaction. Then the risk and controls pertaining to that information system. And lastly, what reliability of this information generated from systems. So please mark this as important. I have also marked this important only. Try to remember these 4 points. First one is very easy, how the business process operates. Then second one, you have to see the relevant information system which is used in your business transaction processes activities. And in that information system, what are the risks and controls which are implemented in that information system infrastructure. And lastly, how reliable is the information which is generated out of that information system. Now they in the last they say that although this is the most relevant in the use of information system in the company, in large and complex ERP environment, it is very unlikely that the other components of internal controls will also be relevant and important. That is what they are saying. So other components of internal control will also play important role in large corporates, in large MNCs, in large companies, where most of the process are automated already. Most of the processes are driven by ERP environment already. So there all the components of the internal control might also be relevant as far as information and communication. So while information communication is more relevant to the use of information system in a company in large and complex ERP environment, it is very likely that the other components of internal controls, with control and risk assessment, activities, monitoring will also be relevant and important. So auditor's role is very easy. You can just read now only. You'll able to comprehend. Tell me now, what do you feel that if entity level controls are effective, will you reduce your sampling in test of control or will you increase your sampling? If entity level controls are effective, will you increase the number of samples or decrease the number of samples in test of controls? Bolo bhai. If your entity level will decrease it, right? Because we are satisfied with entity level control and entity level control environment, entity wide it is okay, then definitely test of control will also be more or less sufficient only. Then similarly, if ELC is effective, you will now increase the testing, right? Increase the number of samples. So results of the ELC testing is to be continuously monitored. That is what they are trying to say. Now, whistleblower policy, this was asked in July 21 exam. The following example shows how the auditor performs an understanding and evaluation of whistleblower policy in a company. And let me tell you, when this came, everyone was thinking that it might be from LODR or from other Companies Act or any sort of that chapter. But it was from here that they wanted you to perform an understanding and evaluation of the whistleblower policy. Now, whistleblower policy, I told you, is an example of entity level control. So you directly it should ring your bells. That what entity level controls, they are talking about entity level controls, and therefore how an auditor will evaluate and understand. And if I tell you, even the answer in the suggested answer, they have not specifically mentioned these points. They have given a general answer, as if they also didn't get from where the question is asked. Do you know this or not? What I felt is generally the person or the team who is making the question is, I think, is the examiner committee or whatever be it, but the committee which is making the question paper and the persons who are giving up the suggested answers are different. Because many a times the straightforward question, the answer is different. The answer should be this, na? This is given, this was given in study mat. This was given in study mat, and the exam question that you'll see in July 21, the same language is exactly same, but they came out with general answer only. So again you will see here the same points. Do the company have a whistleblower policy? Is it documented and approved? Is it communicated to all the employees? Now the employees, are they aware and understood the entire process, entire communication? And have you taken any measures to train the employees, training them, and make them understand the purpose of the policy, and monitor then accordingly? And if they do not follow, then take the disciplinary action. Again, same answer. Are you getting this or not? Just now what we did, compliance with laws and regulation is what management's responsibility. Kind of same answer, right? So one answer we can use in three ways, three questions, in three questions. So you should link this all, write this down. Just beside this, you should write this was seen in two other answers as well. One was management responsibility in the case of compliance with laws and regulation, that is procedures to be implemented by the management for compliance with laws and regulation in SA 250. And the other one was is here only. That means तुम्हारा general IT controls examples. Sorry, not general IT control. It was when you are assessing IT risk in an automated environment. So there you will consider the following three areas, right? The first one was entity wide area, second one was process wide, and third one was layers of automated environment. So in the first point, in the entity wide, there were the three example was given. So you should try and link to everywhere. Once you write this down, link everywhere, then you will have the hold of the subject. Any doubt till now? No doubt? Able to comprehensively get the chapter? Confident that yes, you will be able to retain the all the topics, got all the concepts? Whatever question comes, I'll be able to fetch 5 to 6 marks straight away from this chapter. It's a short chapter only. You'll have to revise again to get that confidence, but can you think in that direction that yes, once after first revision I'll be confident enough? If you have any doubt, you can ask right away, straight now. If not, then we'll move forward. Now comes not entity level control but process level control, transaction level controls. So process level controls, we have to now again evaluate the risk and controls at the process level controls. So SA 315 now requires you to do this assessment of risk at the business process level, that makes up an account balance or FSLI. What do you mean by FSLI? Financial statement line item like purchase, other expense, employee benefit expense, depreciation and amortization, revenue from operation, other income. These are all what financial statement line item, FSLI. And similarly an account balance. So business process that relates pervasively or relates more pertaining to FSLI, account balance. So we as an auditor are required to understand this business process, and this business process is generally a sequence of activity and includes within it a sub process as well. That means what? Sequence of activity. Like example, you can say P2P. P2P example you can say is what? Sequence of activity, right? PRN, then PO quotation, purchase order, invoicing, goods receipt note, quality checking, everything, accounts payable, cash. It's a sequence of activity, and within the P2P it also includes many sub processes. So within purchase requisition there are so many processes, within purchase order creation there are so many processes and controls. So that is what they are saying, a business process is made up of sub process. It's a sequence of activities. It's a made up of sub process. It's a sequence of activities, a logical grouping of related activity. And they have given example of OTC, order to cash process. And this order to cash process, you can just uh, search in Google, YouTube, order to cash domestic order to cash process Yash Chandak, and you'll get in a 1 minute video. I've tried to summarize this order to cash process. What exactly is the process? OTC. I've told you P2P, right? On the similar lines, OTC is the also another process in any entity. So that is what at the risk and controls at the process level. Let's come to last page now. Last page. using relevant analytical procedure and tests using data analytics. So data analytics using of cats, meow, cats, computer assisted audit tools. So this will be generally used in the automated environment, and that is why we have a separate topic on this, using relevant analytical procedure and use testing using data analytics. So generating, preparing meaningful information from raw system data using processes, tools, and techniques is known as data analytics. Have you gone through any of the courses in data analytics? You must have come across certain courses on data analytics by IM Cozy Code, by IAMS and other colleges. So data analytics is a very, very grooming field. Many of the engineers, many of the professionals are exploring this field where you are getting a good, decent package as well. And it's a sort of requirement of the hour, need of the hour, right? Because the data is tremendous, the huge data, and we need to convert those data into information, right? So preparing a meaningful information from raw data using all these tools, technique, PPT, using all the PPTs, people, process, technologies, tools, it's what your data analytics is. And for data analytics, we generally use cats, data analytics methods used in the audits. Cats. The example that I gave you is, suppose example idea. You can see this. And auditors can apply the concept of data analytics, apply the concept of data analytics. That means for the question, if they ask you what is the application of the data, what are the applications of data analytics, where all you can apply. As an auditor, I can apply the data analytics for several aspects of an audit, including preliminary analytics when I am doing the preliminary engagement, preliminary analytics. Similarly, when I am doing risk assessment, I am testing controls, then non-standard general analysis, evaluation of any sort of deficiencies, and even in the case of fraud, risk assessment. All these points, you can think that yes, you can apply your knowledge of data analytics in all these points. You can see the RTP May 2020 question just beside this. RTP May 22 question, how they have asked the question. Yes, done everyone. Come to next question. Suggested approach to benefit from the use of CAT. How can you use the CAT for your benefit? How can you use computer assisted audit tools to get benefit out of that? A suggested approach is given and it is illustrated below. Just tell me, do you remember the calculation of beta? Beta calculation. You have done SFM, right? At least once. Beta, what is the formula of beta? Beta formula. How do you calculate beta? Beta of a stock, a beta of an index. What is beta of an index?
It is covariance of the stock with the market.
Covariance of the stock with respect to the market, right? With respect to standard deviation of the market. So beta,
Yes.
that is why beta of market with respect to market is always 1. Why? Because just now you told what cov xy, right? Divided by standard deviation of the market ka square. That means variance of the market. So we consider x as the market, so sigma square x. So cov xy is what? R into sigma x into sigma y, right? So sigma x into sigma x. Now we told what market with market. Beta of market with market will be what? Sigma y also will be what? Sigma x only. So sigma x get, and R is what? 1. What is correlation of you with yourself? 1 only. So that is why beta of market with respect to market index is what? 1. Similarly, beta of any stock x, beta of any stock y with respect to market x will be what? Cov xy divided by sigma square x. Sir, what this SFM and everything in audit? Because we will try to learn this answer using a process that we derive beta. If you are practically derive beta, I have done this beta calculation practically. What you can do is go to NSE website, take all the data. You will get all the data, opening, closing, high, low, right, of any stock price. You can get all the data of past all days, whatever days that you require. Then take market index data. Fine. Then you will apply the covariance. You'll export it to Excel sheet and everything, and then you can apply the covariance, sigma square x and everything, and you can accordingly derive out of this formula. You can derive the beta of the stock. Beta of the stock. This is regression of the beta. Regress beta. There is other beta that's not going to this, but the process that I told you can be handy for understanding this answer and also to learn the answer. First of all, we'll try to understand the business and environment including IT. So of course stock market is including IT. IT भर भर के भरा हुआ है in the stock market, right? It's very much involved. Stock market is very much dwelled into IT. So understand the business environment including IT. Then define your objective. What is your objective? My objective is to calculate beta. Calculate beta of stock, right? And your criteria. What is my criteria? COV xy divided by sigma square x. COV xy divided by sigma square x. Now I'll identify the source and format of the data. So what is my source? NSE website, or you can go to any website, money control, NSE website, wherever you can find the data, past historical data. And format will be, suppose your what? Tabular format, Excel, tabular format. Now you will extract the data, Excel, extract it out to Excel. And after extracting, verify whether all the data that you wanted has been extracted properly or not. That is verifying the completeness and accuracy of the extracted data. Now you will apply the formula in the Excel. You will apply the formula, all the criteria on the data that you have extracted, apply the criteria, and then validate and confirm the result. How can you validate the result? You can just check the beta of the stock that you have calculated and the past beta that others might have calculated, or you can calculate through other ways. This was the kind of way regression beta. Now similarly, there could be an other way to calculate the beta, and you can check on that as well and validate and confirm the results. And similarly, later on, let's what? Report and document results and conclusions. You are accordingly with accordance with as per SA 230. So again, beta, I told you what to calculate. What can we do? First of all, we'll define the objective. Objective is to calculate the beta. Then we'll define our criteria. Criteria is what? COV xy divided by sigma square x, our formula, right? And then we'll identify the source. The source is NSE website, money control website. Then we'll the format also we have to identify. Format is tabular Excel format. Then we'll extract the data into Excel. After extracting, check the completeness and accuracy of the extracted data, and then apply the criteria. Apply the criteria on the data obtained or data extracted, and then validate the confirming results and confirm the results, and accordingly document the same accordance with SA 230. Everyone able to get this? I hope it's easy only. This has been asked twice for 4 marks. See, you get to complete each and every answer, and you get to have the confidence that yes, I'll be able to score the 4 out of 4 if they ask again, 4 or 5, whatever. So this was asked in December 21. Clear? Any doubt? So in May 23, they directly asked you short notes on ITIL, ISO 20000, PCI DSS, short note on COVID, and short note on CSF for 1 mark. And in May 22, they have asked one MCQ on PCI DSS. They have asked an MCQ that PhonePe is using credit card operations as well, right? So for that credit card operation, which standard, which guideline, or which procedure do you think is most relevant, or framework or best practice that you can follow? And they had given the same option: ICI, ISO, PCI DSS, COVID, CSF. 4 options, 4 options they have given, and the answer will be PCI DSS, because payment card industry data security standard is a kind of standard guideline procedure which has been set by that requires any company that is involved in storage of credit cards, retrieval, transmission, handling of debit card, credit card, or any sort of other information. They need to follow this standard, which is what? PCI DSS, payment card industry data security standard. This is one standard. Similarly, there are other standards like ITIL, ITIL, Information Technology Infrastructure Library, which provide a best practice standard for IT service management in a company. You just need to link with each and every one. ITIL, Information Technology Infrastructure Library, procedures for IT service management. They provide procedures for IT service management. Similarly, COVID, this we have done already in the last class, right? Control objectives of information and related technology relevant to what? IT governance, risk, compliance, information security. And CSF is what? Cyber security framework, dealing generally with any sort of hacking or other critical infrastructure cyber security, or to manage this sort of risk. Now what this I believe is important, can be asked in MCQ as also. Statements on standards for attest engagement. For attest engagement, like auditing, we went through what? SA 402. Do you remember? Type 1 report, type 2 report. SA 402. Similarly, AICPA, not ICI. AICPA is what? American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, largest body of chartered accountant in terms of numbers, number of members, in terms of number of members. And later ICI comes as a second. Now AICPI has issued SSAI, that means Standards on Assurance Engagements 16 for reporting on controls at service organization. So similar to what our standard SA 402 requires, AICPI has issued SSAE 16, which requires to issue SOC 1 or SOC 2 and SOC 3. SOC 1 is with respect to reporting on controls at SO relevant to user entities, like kind of what we have what type 1 report. You can write that SOC 1 is similar to what we have in type 1 report. And SOC 3, SOC 2 and 3 is similar to reporting on controls at service organization relevant to security, availability, processing, integrity, confidentiality or privacy. That means other than ICFR controls. So controls in SOC1 are more or less relating to financial reporting controls, but we'll also study controls other than ICFR in Companies Act. And SOC2 and SOC3 are the dealing with the controls which is other than ICOFR, other than ICOFR wale controls. So while SOC1 and SOC2 are restricted use reports, SOC3 is general use report. This can again be asked in MCQ. So just try to learn this SOC1, SOC2. SOC1 is kind of type 1 report, type 2 report. SOC2 is SOC2 and SOC3 are the reports which is generally focused on those controls which are not forming part of financial reporting. So other than internal control over financial reporting, other than controls other than ICOFR. And SOC1 and SOC2 are restricted report. That means you cannot show this report to each and everyone. Confidentiality has to be maintained. However, SOC3 is a general use report. Similarly, this section 404 of Sarbanes-Oxley also we covered in chapter 3. Do you remember? I told you Sarbanes-Oxley Act similar to what SEBI Act in India we have. They have what Sarbanes-Oxley Act in US, and like what we have SEBI in India, they have SEC, Securities Exchange Commission. So for public listed companies in America, you have to ensure design and effectiveness of ICOFR. You have to ensure what design and effectiveness of ICOFR, which is mandated by section 404 of Sarbanes-Oxley Act. This much you have to retain. Similarly, 143 of the Companies Act also requires you to give an independent opinion of design and effectiveness of ICOFR, sorry, internal financial reporting over financial reporting. And one more was ISMIS. ISMIS is what? Information System Management System. Information System Management System for implementing information security and related controls. I can't help you much with these topics. You have to go through again and again, revise this, all these one-liner points again and again. Then only you will get a grip on this points. They also asked this in May 23 for 4 marks directly. Short note on ITIL, ISO, PCI DSS, COVID, CSF. And then annexure, you can go through the same, which deals with what? General IT controls. General IT controls, these are the 3 activities if you see. And program change, access security. Do you remember? 2 plate access security दो, A 2 plate access security दो, A 2 plate samosa का access security दो. So data center network operation, similarly program change, P for program change, access security. So within each and every example of general IT controls, you'll get to know the illustrations within each and every activity levels. And then lastly, OTC, which you can go through one minute video. I'll share it in the group itself. Okay. So just try to complete this homework. This last topic, do not leave it. I'm leaving it on you. Complete this homework, this last question, and revise again this chapter 3. I hope you have got that hold which is required for this chapter. It's a very short chapter and very important chapter for exam weightage point of view. If you see, in each and every attempt they have given one question at least from this chapter. Okay. So tomorrow there will be a break. We'll resume from day after tomorrow. Okay. So revise accordingly. Whatever we have done till now, clear all your backlogs. I'll upload yesterday's video today because those has to be edited actually, because few recordings couldn't happen. So I had to record again, and accordingly I'll edit and upload today. So go through those recordings if you have not done, Suneshwaran and Sony particularly. and others clear your other backlogs whatever required, and revise. You're getting a ton of information daily, so you need to revise accordingly. Okay, so we will resume on Tuesday then
ठीक है सर.
with standards.
Okay
Chalo,
sir.
bye.
Bye sir.
Revise chapter
Thank you.
4, please.
Bye, sir.